It's Tuesday, February 21st, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.
Hello, and welcome to the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. I'm your host, Chris Quinn, coming from the Beer Temple solo today. So no Mike, no Serge, just me. So patience, please, with any sort of lack of fading skill or poignant comments at the perfect time. You're not going to be getting a lot of that this episode, but we do have something good lined up for you. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks to Lumpen Radio, as always, for having us on 105.5 WLPN 105.5 FM. Yep, Bridgeport, Chicago. I think I got that right. Thanks to Jamie and Ed and all the leaders over there at Lumpen for having us on continually. Thanks for everyone who listens via podcast as well. The way you're wherever you download your podcast, I appreciate it. And I think that's about it. Away we go. We've got an old-fashioned Insiders Roundtable, and it's been so long since I've done this solo. Usually I just bullshit with Mike for a little while at this point, but he's not here. He had better things to do, something about, like, fiance's birthday or something. I don't know. Wasn't really listening, but just going to be me, so I think we might as well just get right into it. We've got a full panel, and I've got to try to do the classic way of introducing everybody, which is order of seniority, that being how many times you've been on the show, the only seniority that really matters as far as I'm concerned. The first one I've got down pretty well. The first one is easy. The senior member of the roundtable this week is Mr. Ashley Brandt, Esquire. What's up, dude? Oh, wait.
Hilarious.
Yes.
I waited years to be the senior member of the
Well, you
roundtable.
almost missed it because I had to unmute. I forgot to unmute.
Don't worry about it. That's probably better for the podcast to keep you going.
Yeah. What's up? How you been?
I have been great. Things are wonderful.
That's good.
I am continually happy and overjoyed to see how the industry is growing. And it's fun to be back here, man. I am very happy to be on this show.
Cool. So everything's good. What's new? Anything exciting in the beer world?
I have to tell you, in the beer world, not necessarily, but in the alcohol world in general, watching these programs grow for everybody and seeing what comes of this next year with.
When you say these programs grow, what do you mean by that?
Different categories. I've got so many of the small craft guys that we represent who are expanding their horizons in ways of commodities. I guess is what we call it: wine, spirits, beer.
Okay.
So a lot of people are branching out and seeing how beer and their brand can grow into wine,
seltzer,
into beer.
RTDs.
The seltzer and RTDs. That's this is actual switching over, and we're going to start a
different
brand.
licensing.
We're going to start
being
a wine
bonded
brand.
now and all that
There's
sort of
even
stuff.
Cannabis, right? I'll take my beer brand and turn it into
heard of that.
to THC, which is excellent.
Yes, I know at least one place that's doing that right now.
Right.
Mutual friend of ours. Yes, very cool. For those of you who don't know, who are out there listening, Ashley is, I don't know, basically the attorney for everyone dealing with beer in the city that I know
it feels
of. Anyway.
that way.
It certainly seems like it. I better not get into any trouble with another member of the industry here in Chicago, because there'll be a severe conflict of interest.
Always.
If that happens, do you get to choose, or does it go in order of seniority? Because I had you pretty long ago.
I go to make sure that everybody gets somebody that they care about. So I find everybody new attorneys.
Okay. Now I just want to pick a fight and see what happens.
I know.
Anyway, thanks for coming on.
Always, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Now it's going to get a little bit more difficult. Boy, oh boy. How many times have you been on?
Once.
Okay, you're not. All right, I think Zach. I think you're next. I think you're the next senior member of the Roundtable. This is like your third or fourth time, right? I believe so,
Wow,
Mr.
yeah. I think maybe 3 official and maybe 4 I was a hanger on.
Yeah, your
somehow.
peanut gallery.
But yeah.
What's up, Mr.
Yeah.
Zach Rotello of the Olympic Tavern in beautiful Rockford, Illinois? Beautiful, I've heard. Never been, but I'm sure it is beautiful.
Parts are real nice. Yeah, doing pretty well, man. Just plugging away, planning a bunch of stuff out for the new year, and yeah, that's nothing new, man. Nothing new under the sun.
Well, thanks for coming on. I asked you to be on just earlier today because you and I had been chatting back and forth over the past week or so, and just kind of came to mind. There's a couple topics that I felt there was a chance I was going to get ganged up on. So I was like, who can I get that's really good at arguing stuff? And I was like, oh, okay, I know. Zach.
You picked the right guy.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, Jacob, I think you've got to be the next. Okay, well, it's a tie. Well, I'm already talking to you. So your second official appearance, Mr. Jacob Sembrano of Cruz Blanca. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah, what's new?
Well, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. We're just getting ready for spring and summer. We're kind of a big spring and summer brand, so we've got some new items we're going to release this year, some specialty that's we're kind of excited about. Then just plugging away with Mexico Calling.
Yeah.
And just making a shit ton of that. And
Floridita, I hope.
Floridita's coming back.
My favorite. I mean, I know you did the multiple variants last year. Which variants did you do on
We
it?
did a Yuzu and Pinot Gris, which was really nice.
I still got 2 or 3 of those Pinot Gris.
Wow, they're pretty old now, but
I know.
I'm sure they're still all right. And then we did like a mango orange one, which was kind of fun too. Yeah, so just kind
and
of.
then the regular, the reg. I will say that's still the rosé one. That's my favorite personally. But the yuzu one I really liked because I think we did an event that had all 3 of them on.
Well, we're doing it again, and we hope that this year fulfills you just as much as the previous years.
I've said it with you on the show, I think, and I've said it when you're not on the show. Therefore, I actually mean it. If I've only said it with you on the show, you don't know if I actually mean it or not. But it's like my summer beer that isn't like just a normal beer-flavored beer. It's like my beer of choice for the summer. Florida is so good.
Your break from beer.
Yes. It's awesome. Love it. Well, cool. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And last but certainly not least, we've got Tom Beckman. Sorry, got it right. Of Goldfinger. Yeah, thanks.
You're doing great so far.
All right, so far so good. I don't want to be accused on air of not knowing anyone's last name, like Jude something or other accused me of the other day. But what's up with you? I know you got a bunch going on. What's up with you? You just had your dark lager day, right?
We sure did.
How'd it go?
It was great. Every year.
Second one or third one?
Third, actually.
Okay.
Second year, we've actually put some thought into it. The first year we did it, it was like on a Wednesday, and we just happened to have a Schwarzbier and a Doppelbock ready to go. So I was like, let's call this night Dark Lager Day, I guess.
Yeah, it was Dark Lager night last time because I used we're doing an event for the second year with you guys as well.
Yep.
We have it coming up this Saturday.
Honored to be doing it again.
Yeah, well, thank you. And it was called Dark Lagers Night last time, and I used the same poster, and then I was like making some changes to it, and I had them printed up, and I put them up, and then Steven's like, "These all have to come down. It's called Dark Lagers Day now." I was like, "All right." So that's how I realized it was an all day thing. So it's okay.
No, we're looking forward to that.
Yeah. How did it go? How did it go for you?
It was great. It's really encouraging to see people into all different types of dark lagers. I think the fact that there wasn't a consensus leaving the brewery that day of what was the best one is a good sign, because that's kind of one of our goals too, is that dark lagers is a broad category, but I mean, just between the 3 beers that we released, they taste totally different. It's a completely different experience. So it's fun to have more people into that. And we ended up filling a cask of our Vienna lager as well. And like in the middle of the party, just tapped it and passed out a bunch of free beer for people to do a toast to dark lager. So
I'm sure
it's
they're
a good time.
psyched about that. Yeah, that's cool.
People like free stuff.
True. So you have a black lager. Is that your Schwartz beer? Those are
Yes.
the same, right? Okay.
Yes, black lager is our Schwarz beer. The third beer that we release, we've kind of started to just rotate it, because last year we did a Czech dark for our third one. So it's always our Doppelbock and our Schwarz beer. This year we did our black Pilsner, which is kind of a made-up beer. I've seen a lot of breweries call their Schwarz beer black Pilsner. Which I understand, but it's not really a Pilsner. It's a Schwarz beer. It's not quite the same experience as like a German-style Pils. But I love German-style Pils, and I like dark beer. So I was like, hey, let's make a actual Pilsner. Base is a Pilsner, but let's put a little roastiness into it. And we actually ended up dry hopping it with some very kind of more like stone fruit forward hops that really complement the roastiness in it.
New World hops or old
Polish hops.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, kind of older school Polish hops.
Okay, that's cool. So I have a theory that if Dunkel had a makeover and it was called Bavarian Dark Lager, it would be people would think it was cool again, because that's a style I think is delicious, but nobody gives a shit about Dunkel. I mean,
isn't it
nobody.
a shame?
It's
I
I think the least interesting style to people, which I think it's very good beer. I think it's an exceptionally good beer. I don't get how it's just why nobody cares about that style. And then I saw Czech Dark Lager, and we were talking about it at Siebel, and I started mulling it over. I was like, got to be able to rebrand some of these things, because I think pub ale, I think like bitter and pub ale gets called bitters and milds and stuff gets called pub ale, and I think that does help for it. Although mild seeing a little bit of a resurgence now.
Yeah.
You got any milds on, Zach? Anyone drinking mild in Rockford?
I've got on Solemn Oath Chub Guts ESB, which is about as similar as you're going to get.
Okay. Got it.
But dude, we crank a lot of amber malty beer too. I mean, I think we have a pretty balanced sell-through of our styles. I think I've started to see some of the hazy stuff start to slow down, and people are going back to German Pils. Definitely start seeing Kronbacher just flying.
Interesting. Okay. Well, you heard it here first. Next big thing, Bavarian Dark Lager.
I like that. I like that rebranding for sure.
Yeah. All right.
But I agree with you. Dunkel is phenomenal style. It was the first beer I had when I got to Germany for my brewing program. So it brings back fond memories. We brew one. We usually release it in November.
I think we had it when we were out there when Beer Temple crew visited. I think you had it. I think. Maybe not.
No, because I thought you guys came kind of in the summer or in warmer months.
I don't remember. No. Well, I don't remember. I have no idea.
You brought me Dunkel.
I did. Yeah. I brought you the the herder.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is I remember getting back and having it and being like, whoa, this was a really good batch. So I hope you
enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, I totally forgot to ask people if there's any beers that they've had lately that have been exciting to them at their
I can tell you.
Go for it.
I was in Salzburg over Thanksgiving, and there were only two choices at Augustiner Brau, which was a Marzen and a Dunkel, and it was the Dunkel that blew everything away. It was spectacular. I didn't want to let it out of my mouth.
Okay.
I want to swallow. It was that good to have that just rolling around in there.
Yeah, I've had like one like epiphany moment with a Dunkel. I've had good ones, but I had one time it was up in Madison, and they must have just had this insanely fresh keg.
That's awesome.
But it was Etaler Dunkel, and I've never had one that tasted that good ever again. So it was awesome. So I think yours was probably even better, but hopefully I'm directionally. How about you, Zach? What have you had lately that excited you, or what are you looking forward to having?
What am I excited lately? We have a keg of like Stone Ruination that's like 40 days old, and man, that's just really hitting a spot right now and bringing me back like
It's
10,
an ass
12
kicker,
years
that
ago
beer.
in beer when it was
when beer used to
just jumping out the glass and like abrasively bitter, and I'm like, man, this is nice right now. I haven't had.
Yeah. I'm going to California next month, and I'm going to be going to Pizza Port, and that's what I'm hoping for is just like incredibly fresh, bone dry, like just like assaultingly kind of bitter. I can't drink them all the time, but I want to go to San Diego and I want to have some of those beers, and then I'll have the more modern versions of it. But I want some of those old school West Coast IPAs. Here's another idea that I have. Now that West Coast IPA doesn't really mean much anymore, I think it means not hazy more than anything. I think some of those old school bone dry ones, when I was in the East Coast, we used to call them San Diego style IPAs. Well, we didn't know West Coast IPAs. We call them San Diego IPAs. So maybe that's another one, like another delineation. I think we're in an age where you have to delineate more and more. One, because people like the name, the new style. Sure. But two, I mean, if West Coast IPA doesn't really, I guess a lot of them have changed.
These are our appellations. I mean, this is if there were a way for our TTV to go ahead and just like the Willamette Valley,
exactly.
We could do these things.
Cascadian Dark Ale.
Yeah, that's exactly what we should have.
Yeah. We want it to be more like the French. Right. That's exactly what we want.
More like the California, West Coast, Northwest Coast, Pacific West wine scene.
Right. So a New England IPA, exactly. Would never, you wouldn't be able to make it here.
You have to have it. Was this
a Cremant?
Yeah. Where was this? Was this along the along the Hudson River Valley?
Yes.
Where did this come from?
Yeah. What's the provenance of this IPA, of this haze?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Who's next? Any good beers that people have had?
I had a beer last night by Maine Beer Co.
Say no more.
And it was Wolf's Neck, I think. Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Yeah. Very good.
Just when I was drinking it, I was just like, damn, that's nice.
Yeah.
Very fulfilling.
What style is that?
IPA.
Yeah.
Nice and clear.
Little
ambery.
Mm-hmm.
It was excellent.
Something that they can, I mean, they're so good at having beers taste so maybe simple in a way, but just very well put together.
I wouldn't call it a terribly dynamic beer, but it was just really simple and it's all I wanted. It was excellent.
Yeah. My mind's now on my West Coast trip. So the beer that I'm the most excited to have is at a place called McIlhenny in Alpine, California, which is San Diego County. It's the folks who started Alpine Brewing Co. And someone told me they're in the same space that Alpine used to be. I don't know if I believe that, but they're in the same town. And they started a new brewery because Alpine was bought by Green Flash, and I don't know who owns the rights now to it, but they have apparently a golden rye IPA with Nelson in it called something. But I mean, that's what my all-time memory of an IPA is Nelson from Alpine. So I want to recreate
what happened
that.
to rye IPA?
I don't know.
I know that bitterness from the rye, the sour, that
was
beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
And as much as I think a lot of craft beer geeks have graduated onto the world and whiskey world, the interest in rye I don't know. All the people I talk to in beer always miss like Sierra Ruthless, or
Yeah.
you're looking forward to a rye IPA, where like it's just the style I'm not anymore.
I heard Ruthless Rye might be coming back in like an old school variety pack from Sierra Nevada.
Nice.
I know. I think Keller, what's it called? Like Keller Pills, I think is coming back. Oktoberfest is coming back. So maybe enough people complained that they went to an all IPA brewery,
Nice.
and I think it was either like Ruthless Rye or like Tumbler. Some of the older seasonals they're going to do a rebrew of. So that's pretty exciting.
You guys
Bring
had
back Glissade Bach.
Yeah.
you had a Wookiee Jack on here.
I was
this
just
weekend, yeah.
I was just gonna say that was gonna be one of the beers that I just had that
Yeah.
really blew me away. Jude, I don't know his last name.
I don't think he has one.
Della Rose.
Yeah, Della Rose.
De La Rosa.
Yeah, Jude Della Rosa.
He came to Dark Lager Day and brought me a can of that, I had
Oh yeah,
never.
he bought that here. He bought a whole case for the Super Bowl. I think he bought a case of Tipo Pills
He brought me some of that too.
and
Yep.
a case of Wookiee Jack. And
Both
he's-
were great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He said they were. I saw him the other day, and he was telling me that they're both really good. So I'm glad you got to share it. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's a great beer.
That's right, too.
It is right.
Yeah, that's right. It's a rye black IPA. There you are. Cool. Well, I think we should probably just get into it. I was going to start with a small topic. Yeah, no, I will. I'll start with a small little appetizer. Then we'll get into what I think might be a meatier story. But then again, I never really can tell. Did you guys see? To me, I was just a little bit surprised by it, but it's hard to get surprised by acquisitions nowadays. Do you see that Bear Republic was bought by Drake's Beer Company out in California? I mean, they used to see distribution here. I think they saw a drop in the past couple of years. You guys don't get Bear Republic, do you, in Rockford, Zach?
Man, it's been many years. Although that was like one of the first wave of craft beer that we could get out here when like Lagunitas was new, and
Yeah.
those guys. I think Bear Republic was one of the first ones to expand into Chicago, Illinois market, and Racer X and Racer 5.
Yeah.
So
That was-
another red rye IPA, right?
Yeah. That's right. Red's Rye IPA. That's true. Man, good memory. So now Racer 5 is 92% of their sales, which was shocking to me personally. Not probably the safest thing to have. But, yeah, so they were bought by Drake's, and I had completely forgotten who Drake's even was. And Doug Valicki was kind of incredulous about it and didn't believe that I didn't remember Drake's. I guess they have a following, and they're a legendary, California brewery. Does anyone here know Drake's? Okay, I'm seeing 1, 2. Do you know Drake's?
No.
Okay, and okay. So okay, I'm not the only one. So so maybe this will be a quick topic then, which is fine. Does anyone feel one way or the other about it? I don't really feel one way or the other, but whenever there's somebody's purchase.
I'm interested in the economics of it. When you sent this article around
Right.
From the Brewbon stuff,
Yeah.
I went and I remember the Racer X series. I didn't remember anything about Drake's, and I don't know who they were. But from the perspective of what we're likely about to see across the country for the next 2 years, this is really interesting to me. The idea that the acquisition will be for the brand. You leave the brewery. You think you can make something of it. I didn't.
What do you mean
see
you
in
leave
that
the
article-
brewery for?
Yeah, as far as Brewbound was reporting, the equipment and everything else,
Yeah.
that's not the deal. Like this was a brand acquisition. It was buying Stella, being Budweiser.
One of the other reasons I wanted to put this is because in my predictions show, I talked about how long is it until they're just horse trading brands?
Sure.
And I think we're getting there.
Famous recipes, whatever you're right. They bought Racer X, right? That's what they.
Yeah,
that's what
or
they
Racer
got.
5.
Or
Racer 5.
right.
That's the one they
So
want.
That's what they wanted. That's what they got, and they didn't care about the equipment. It wasn't to deal with anything like that, which is a bigger play, and an enjoyable notion of purchasing a brand. purchasing a brewery.
Yep.
So
I mean, how long until like Voodoo Ranger is
Exactly.
sold, but not New Belgium? Like, or they
that would be
one goes
interesting.
one way and one
Right.
the other way because they're so kind of separate from one another. And I think
Exactly.
they have such
That's
different
interesting.
like buyer bases and stuff like that, or consumer bases. So, yeah, I thought it was interesting as well.
I think it's interesting too that Racer 5 came back to this market just 4 or 5 months ago. There was this
Yeah.
big splash again,
And then
and
gone.
everybody was really excited. Clearly, that had something to do
Yeah,
with
was
the
that part of it?
acquisition.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
right.
Look, look at our distribution. Look at our volume. Look at the excitement we've built. Now value us according to that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I hadn't thought of it that way. I
Did that
thought
article report on the price?
I didn't see
I didn't
anything
see
on the
it
price.
either.
No. I think it's a private deal, so I don't think they have to say anything about it. But who knows?
People blab. There
Oh.
are actual sources you can go to that talk about the price of private deals, but
Okay.
Brandt does not have a subscription probably to whatever that,
Yes.
that service is. Right?
Maybe. I don't know. Or I don't have a subscription to wherever it is. So let's leave it at that. Yeah. No idea. But do you see a lot of brands being acquired by other smaller regional
No,
brands?
That's the interesting part.
Yeah.
Is that this is, I was interested in whatever Velicky would say about the size of Drake's and why this was attractive to them, what was appealing about it, because that would be the economic calculus that we would look for across the country for other regional brands to say, okay, I'll partner with this, I'll buy this regional brand, and we'll see if now I have two powerhouse beers that I can sell and market.
Powerhouse, aka
Right, I
I've
know,
never even
I
heard of it. I guess they have something called like I don't know. I was looking up their beers.
How many barrels is this Racer 5? Like, what did they sell?
I don't remember. I'd have to
Or
go.
case
I'd have
equivalents?
to go look. Yeah, exactly. How many CE? I think it said its volume was down to 36,000, just under 37,000 barrels. But it had also been down. That's down 15%. It had been a top 50 brewery, and it had seen double-digit decline since 2017. And then Drake's, it does say Drake's is just under 30,000 barrels.
Weird.
So you've got a 37,000 barrel brewery that is selling to just under 29,700 barrels, but Drake's is up 5%, and it looks like Bear Republic is dropping. Never mind. It's up 5%, which followed a 36% decline in 2020. So, yeah. Well, so put together, they're if they would keep the same barrelage, 70,000 combined, which would put them in the top 40.
Kind of on topic, but
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about how other beer styles have become a little bit more popular. You start seeing some of the bigger brands brewing beers that they really had no business brewing those styles just because of the kind of more localized popularity of them, that I foresee in the not so distant future. Some of the bigger breweries who see more specialized breweries in a specific style that happens to be very popular, where it might actually make sense that they acquire that and they don't necessarily change the brand, but they use all of their resources to promote it so that they can grow their business. So
Give me an example of what you're talking about.
let's say
A small suburban lager-only brewery that's looking to sell.
exactly. All right, so
the highest bidder.
Yeah. No, but fine, I'll use that as an example. What if there was, what if like Rev was like, you know what, it doesn't make sense in our portfolio to keep pushing our lager
Rev Pils.
portfolio,
Yeah.
Rev Pills. It's losing popularity, but we want lager in our portfolio. We have the resources. Let's just get some popular pills, more popular on the ground pills, and see if we can buy it and grow it that way.
I mean, to a certain extent, that's what AB did with Goose by killing their seasonals, and you found 312 absolutely. They wanted 312. They didn't really care about Green Line and any of that.
Right.
And also having Bourbon County in their portfolio helped, but they kind of killed everything for a while, and now it's figured itself out now.
Right.
Almost
It's
10
Goose
years
IPA
later.
312.
But
Goose
they-
IPA.
Yeah.
Do you think that there would be more consolidating on a smaller scale?
I think that happens all the time. I think it happens around us more than we think, especially with
Just not in the beer world?
just not in the beer world. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if a mid-sized brewery relinquishes their portfolio to just kind of or somebody wants to buy them and just makes what they do really well, just their bread and butter. We talk about this all the time, but like I see the industry consolidating like really hard right now. I think it's coming, and it's kind of scary.
So when you say consolidation, though, but what you were saying is like allowing a brewery to do another brewery to do their bread and butter. But I think Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like they're just taking the brands and saying, we'll brew it on our system. So it's really just, I guess, buying the recipes, the IP, and the know-how.
Not necessarily. I think
because then it's just an acquisition. It's not just buying the brands, and then it's just you're buying the brewery, right?
What do you need
Right.
anything else for?
I guess it's an acquisition driven by your desire to have some relevance in a category or a style that you're not really selling a lot of.
Oh yeah.
But no, I would foresee it as something like, okay, well, we can preserve whatever you do, try to optimize whatever your process is, and then here's a whole bunch of money for you to make it much bigger, and we're also going to market it much more effectively.
Well, that's very much like what AB did then, right?
Yep.
But I can see. So you're going at it from like a
smaller scale,
right,
kind of thing.
and also like from a specializing standpoint, kind of like again AB and Goose, where I guess the specialty would be olive craft was their
Right.
specialty, but to AB that is a niche specialty. Where going back to Alpine, it made no sense really when one San Diego IPA brewery in Green Flash bought another San Diego
Right.
IPA brewery in Alpine.
Yeah.
Maybe, that doesn't make the most sense, along with some of their other business decisions, apparently. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, smaller acquisitions of smaller brands. Now, do you see the consolidation, Jacob, just because there are going to be breweries in distress that are going to be available and someone's going to see value at the going rate? Or do you think it's going to be no matter what happens, it will be pitched as a joint effort that is totally what we would have done no matter what?
Yeah.
So,
Well, we talked about this on that last show a little bit too that we did, but I'm maybe from a distributor standpoint, some of us can self-distro, great, which is going to lead into probably something else we're going to talk about today. But a lot of distributors are just putting the squeeze on their breweries, and if you can't, get serious about a couple of brands, then they don't want to kind of fuss around with you. So, which is what exactly where Cruise is right now. Mm-hmm. So, and there's a lot of positive to that, and there's a lot of power in that, but it kind of limits the specialty things that you want to send out into the world. So it's really depends on the structure of your brand and exactly what you want from it. So, I mean, that's where I see the consolidation happening.
well, it's also like that that Weiner beer company, the offshoot lager brand that they're doing self-distro for now. Does anyone remember? Oh,
Lil
boy.
Y.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah, Lil Y. It's interesting, but it also, I think, to me, is telling that they did the Jerry Nelson kind of end around with the Unane and Hubbard's Cave.
Hidden Hand. I mean, come on. It's everywhere.
Yep.
Sure, but I mean, he did it first.
Yes.
It doesn't matter who did it first. It matters who does it better.
Yes, true.
I think
True.
Larry Bell did that first, right? With Kalamazoo.
Yeah,
Brewing.
exactly.
Yeah, maybe you're
no,
right.
No, Zach is entirely right. And one of the impetus, it's not necessarily, hey, I've got a different style. My brand is about a certain style, so I need a new brand to be a different style. I think the first thing was I'm stuck in a distribution relationship that I don't want to be.
I need to get out of. How do I get out of it?
I need to start a new brand because this entire distribution franchise statute is based around brands. So if I'm not that brand anymore, I'll let it go and I'll go start a new thing.
Yeah.
And that was the Larry Bell method as well.
Yeah. Interesting. I guess time will tell, but I do think we're going to see more of this brand acquisition. Yeah. Do you think there's going to be a lot more just acquisitions and consolidation overall, Jacob?
Maybe not necessarily acquisition, but consolidation of breweries' portfolios.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I think, now let me ask, do you think this is going to be, will come from within or from without? Is this going to be outside pressures from their distributor partners, or is it going to be what they choose to do and then sell it to their distribution partners?
It's a really interesting question. Again, I think it's about intent. I think a lot of breweries, what I kind of want to see come back and what I think is trying to come back is, remember those core brands, when, everybody was super into those. And then, the whole industry kind of went into chaos mode, and it was like, how many one-offs can I make? And now it's kind of like, maybe the compass is kind of resetting a little bit. And if you want to stay alive, you got to just brew the same shit over and over again.
And get really good at it as well.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the future of where I think beer is going. Is it distributor pressure? Possibly. Is it?
There's some of it.
Yes, for sure.
It's not all one thing or another. Yeah.
But if you want to be a small brewery cranking out 800 barrels a year of all specialty, then you can do that really well too. But it just depends on your model and how you're selling your beer. I think they can coexist.
And this was definitely the first year where we saw a ton of distributors put their finger down and say, "I'm not dealing with 20 SKUs."
You mean last year was?
This year and last year. Last year they pressed for it, but they didn't have the cojones to push for it a lot. This year they're really pushing for it.
I think COVID killed.
Windy City pushed pretty hard last year towards the middle of the year.
Yeah, but Windy didn't win it. Windy's winning it this year, and forcing everyone to just do it and say, "Look, you can go do it someplace else.
We don't care.
We don't care.
You can do it someplace else. Only you can't because we have your rights."
No, you'll find that many distributors aren't interested in maliciously killing a brand. They're willing, more or less, to let you walk if you're something they don't want to deal with anymore.
Hopefully that's true. Yeah.
So is that's a bad prognosis then for new breweries, I would assume, and especially breweries that haven't even opened yet?
Oh my God, I can't imagine being a new brewery now and trying to get a large distribution.
Oh, distribution?
Oh, geez,
No.
that'd be nuts. You're never going to happen.
I think you have to do it through self-distro first.
Right.
Prove yourself and then
Right.
move to a distro, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, you can't cast that wide net with a bunch of different styles and see what people like. You gotta, if you want to pitch a distributor, you gotta say this is the best.
Or maybe go
X
to
beer.
Or maybe go to one of those just like really small. And I don't mean this as any offense,
Don't
but
say
like,
his name.
No, I won't say anyone's name. But like a small distributor who specializes in occasional drops. It's more of like a drop process. But that's a lot of legwork as well to make all those relationships around the country and do all that stuff.
You're doing that for the drops, but really what you're doing is that localized influence for a small period of time.
Right. Pipe fill.
Where it doesn't, I don't know if it pays off or not.
Right, I'm with you.
And then when Hazy's not popular anymore, they're just buying up all the dark Czech lager and dropping that somewhere else.
Exactly.
And then they're going to buy up all the German pills, and then they're going to...
Munich dark lager.
No, Bavarian.
Bavarian dark lager. Sorry, Bavarian dark lager. Yeah, exactly. All right, cool. Well, something that was of interest to me that I saw was this: the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild had been going onto social media and pushing the public via their Twitter accounts and Phobab's Twitter accounts for some new legislation that is getting voted on this year, right? And I mean, actually,
Is this direct to consumer?
yeah.
So this
the other one that I'm talking about.
There are a few. Some of them are very important. Some of them have no chance in hell of being passed. Direct consumer is probably one of those that has no chance in hell. But that is not a movement that started with beer. That is a movement that started with discus and the small independent craft distilleries around the country. Kentucky a few years ago passed a law that said, in violation of Granholm, which is a Supreme Court case about parity across the Dormant Commerce Clause in many states. Kentucky passed a law that said, look, if your state out there allows our distilleries to go ahead and sell direct to consumers in your state, we'll let you do it in Kentucky. Totally a violation of dicta and Granholm. You can't have these, interstate things. Once one state allows it, you have to then allow parity. But Discus, the large lobbying arm for spirits in the country, has now backed across multiple states, about 5, I think, is part of this year's initiative, a movement with their craft distillers guilds in those states to actually try and get direct-to-consumer going, because it makes sense in spirits. It really does. It's bang for your buck. There's higher alcohol content that people are willing to pay to have that packaging price and that cost of shipping for that type of alcohol. It has a higher shelf life, and much like wine, it can be aged and kept for a long time. Beer has kind of glommed onto that and thought, hey, this could be fun. We could do this too. We very much can make something out of this. Our breweries, there are maybe a few of them who are hot enough that around the country, if we had direct to consumer, they could make some money by selling not a lot of beer to one person, because no one's going to order this continually and no one's going to be buying it over and over again, and no one wants to pay these ridiculous prices for shipping beer that doesn't last long, that's going to sit in a hot mail van for forever.
With few
the mail allows
exceptions.
it,
With
right?
few exceptions.
Yeah,
right. I mean, there's always, if you could get spotted cow delivered, people would get it delivered.
People at a certain price point, right? Like as the shipping goes up and the shipping goes down, you get more spotted cow, less spotted cow. I mean, the invisible hand is very much there. I get it. Beer's a different beast, and it's very interesting to me that just for the sake of, I think, tossing another try at generating sales into something, that we're pressing this for beer now too, because I'm not so sure that it is a great idea for beer. But I also don't think it's going to matter, and I think the outcry against it is ridiculous.
Well, going back, okay, interesting. So let me, what I was hoping you would do is give an outline of what it is, rather than talk about,
the history and thing.
Glass-Steagall or whatever.
Right. I apologize. So the what it is the idea that both a few federal laws might get changed to allow for the mail service to ship direct, and that many state laws would get changed to allow manufacturers, especially small craft manufacturers, to be able to take orders across multiple state lines and ship those things direct to consumers, which, quite frankly, apart from a few services that pretend that they're doing this lawfully now, is pretty much completely illegal in most places for a brewery to ship directly across state lines to.
And more and more are doing it.
Many are doing it, and many services pretend to offer a solution, but you'll find that when you get to their terms and conditions on their website, they absolutely say, oh, by the way, we're not in charge of compliance. Compliance is entirely on you, and if you get busted for this, that's entirely your fault, and you should have done the legal compliance, and you represent that you're going to do the legal compliance for this. In any event, neither here nor there. I have a beef with those people. My beef is not with people who want to do direct consumer. Direct consumer is literally what the name says. We're going to sell direct to people and not go through distribution chains and through retail stores to get there. And it's not the kind of thing that it through the mail, right? Everybody has a tap room now. You can drive to a brewery and get the stuff. This is about mailing it or shipping it direct to people with that cost included.
So the first time I saw it was on Twitter, and it was the Phobab account saying, essentially, I think they were alluding to something about, like, don't you wish that those beers that are really hard to get at retail you could get? Well, with this legislation, maybe you could. and I wrote on the Beer Temple account. I have been having some beers. I've been out. I just wrote LOL, and I went back and deleted the tweet the next day. I was like, maybe that's not the how I want to do it.
Right, to interact with this and deal with it.
Yeah, I just wrote LOL, but
the obvious problem is if it's hard to get at retail, trust me, it's hard to get anywhere. Like people line up at this brewery it's the Hill Farmstead phenomena, right? Your direct to consumer is not going to solve the problem.
Right.
Scarcity is the problem.
right. But if you can get the consumer to think that it'll solve it, and then get a couple of them to make a call or something like that, then hey, that could sway the legislation.
Oh, that's the exact. Those types of arguments get used on every side of this thing, especially now with the opposition to it, where you're like, oh,
Right.
well, this is going to destroy retail. Like, no one's going to fucking use this. Sorry.
So, all right, Zach. So and then the next thing I saw about it was Zach. You put out a bunch of. Well, not a bunch, but a couple posts about it. And I started looking, and I was like, man, a lot of people who don't really say much about this sort of thing seem to be coming out and talking about it. But what's your take on the legislation? Because I thought what you put out there was pretty well thought out.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, I'm clearly my Twitter feed is just like an unfiltered version of my brain for some reason. Whereas like everything else for our social media is pretty well curated, and I try and be very professional as much as possible as you need to be. Twitter, for some reason, I don't know if it's because it's like typed and it's verbal, but like it's like a free outlet for my brain sometimes. So,
well, then how do you feel about it now? If I'm not going to hold you what you said on Twitter.
So.
Although what you say on Twitter is
no,
generally good stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, I don't care that much. I agree. I don't think it's going to be a huge volume mover for anybody because of the shipping costs involved. I mean, it doesn't seem tenable for many people. It seems like there's already some players in that space of like direct consumer shipping, right? You've got your Tavor, Osner or something is another one, right? These like integrated like shipping marketing companies that somehow have a license in like Nevada or something.
Yeah,
where it's
I think Equilibrium is now doing
to do that.
direct-to-consumer shipping
really?
into Illinois.
Interesting.
Yeah, we don't bring them in anymore as a result.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that is going to be the end point and end game of the conversation is like, I think the bigger picture at this point is, at least in my opinion, I've always really supported the small brewer law changes and because like bad liquor laws hold us all back, right? You and I as a bar owner have always had to deal with stupid liquor laws that don't make any sense or anything. So I've always been like, hey, common sense, let's improve the system. Let's do that. And the Brewers Guild has always been, well, let's do that. Rising tide lifts all ships. We just want a fair shake. And now I'm like, well, but a lot of the things you guys are doing seems like a competitive advantage. And I can't begrudge you for that at all. Totally can't. As a businessman, and
it gets right in your face
hustle.
too.
I'm
Remember,
good for everyone to hustle. Let's do it.
Right.
Roper, when he pointed out, hey, why are you selling this thing in your tap room for $3 cheaper than I can even get it, let alone what I'm going to be able to sell it for to make a profit.
Sure.
That was one of the first undercutting awful things. This thing though, this poultice of a piece of legislation that probably won't do much, and unless it's a countrywide thing that helps a brewery sell to Nevada and California. Say my Illinois brewery now has a market in Florida, has a market in Nevada. I don't have to make a lot of sales there. I can, in the aggregate, make a few sales to make a lot of sales in those places. Okay, I see the point if it works, but why do this and not fight for greater self-distribution caps? Why not fight for a franchise law fairness that says,
well, that's
as a
where
small
I'm at.
brewer, I'm not beholden to your franchise law.
The Brewers Guild used to be kind of going up against distribution. They seem to have backed off, and to me, I don't know with you, Zach, the last couple bits that they've tried to push forward seems to be anti-retailer, which is to me upsetting, and it's just like, okay, well, it's not going to stop, and it is a bummer to be like, well, I mean, obviously it's the Brewers Guild, it's the Brewers lobbying organization. They're not necessarily out for the retail partner, but
Totally.
they'd have to see that there's, you're you would think you would need the retail partner. I mean, if you're doing self-distro, you might not need the distributor, but you're going to need a retailer. And
well, I think that's the bigger point, is that this is the point in business where we all have to figure out who our good business partners are and who we're aligned with. And I think breweries, and I'm not faulting for that. I can't hate on the hustle. Like they're looking for the quick consumer dollar. And their consumer is changing from the bottle shop owner, the pub owner, to Joe beer drinker who just wants a 6-pack or whatever. So they have to straddle that line of being a good supplier to both of on-premise and off-premise retailers and the consumer, and that's not easy to do. There's only a couple breweries that I think have done that really well. New Glarus being one of them. If you talk to any of their suppliers up in Wisconsin, the folks at New Glarus will always tell you at the brewery, hey, the beer is $2 or $3 more than it should be here. So if you want to buy a 6-pack, go down the street to the gas station down the street, which is our biggest account in the world,
right,
and get a 6-pack for $11.99 or whatever. Those guys have realized that their value is on premise or at retail. I think it's a difficult line to strike.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that I was trying to think of like who would make use of this, and I'm curious to talk to the two brewers in the room about how you think that this legislation could possibly benefit brewers. I see it as one, specialty releases where it might make sense to pay for shipping because it's your super duper triple barrel aged beer that you have to line up at the brewery for, and now you can ship it. And now this law is just for Illinois, so it doesn't go outside of Illinois. But I guess
part of a national movement to try and bring parity amongst the states for these things. So
yes,
yeah,
I know. I mean, I'm with you, Ashley. I mean, I think it's a stepping stone. But I do think, and I was talking to Max here at the shop, and Tom, your brewery came up. I could see somebody who has kind of a pretty strong reputation for a quality, like drinkable, kind of everyday quote unquote beer, where you could buy a case of it, and then maybe the shipping would kind of make sense. Like you can buy a whole case, or maybe you can do a mixed case. You do your dark lager case or your light lager cases, or if it's someone like Hop Butcher, they come out with 5 beers a month, or 6. I'll make it 6 beers because it makes sense. Right. So you can do a subscription and just have them send a mixed case. How much of that are they going to do? I don't know. But those are the two kind of ways I could see it, like the special release and then somebody who can get someone to actually pull the trigger on an entire case. I don't think 4-packs are going to get purchased and sent via, UPS.
You got to really.
Have you ever bought off
of
one of those websites, Quinn, like Tavor or whatever those other sites? Have you bought one of those?
Some of my employees have, and I've told them I would pay for the shipping portion of it just to see how it comes through.
How does it come through?
I'm assuming there's a minimum order or something.
Yeah, that I'm not even sure about. It comes through. The last bit is through a courier nowadays. It used to come FedEx, and now it's through a courier.
Yep. But how does it taste? I mean, is the integrity of that product maintained when it goes out to Washington State and then gets packaged up and sent back through multiple courier services, FedEx and couriers?
I love that Ashley's attack is like on quality. He's 100% focused.
That's
on quality.
pretty sweet.
That's
I have to agree.
The least thing from my mind where I'm like, who cares if you're shipping fruit juice across the country? But I think you're right. Like special release stuff, or maybe some sort of like subscription service or something would make sense. But shipping costs on a case of beer, it's got to be god awful high. And you even saw
$25-$30. I
think in the last big Rev release, I think they got a little blowback online because they saved a little and sent some off to one of those online resellers, and they got some bitching and moaning from the Chicago beer geeks, being like, "Well, hey, how come you said you ran out the brewery, but you got enough for them?" But then again, those are the same guys that are shipping fruit juice from across the country from that same company.
I mean, I sent him a message. I didn't say like, "Hey, I'm angry at you," but I was like, "Oh, Tavor got some, huh? You're sipping some to retail, huh? Interesting. Oh. The first retailers to get it is Tavor, huh?
Quinn.
Interesting. What?
Difficult to find those products at retail sometimes.
Yeah, I know. So we need to have direct to consumer. And then it got real easy on Tavor, which is why everyone was so upset because it sold out in like 10 seconds there.
That thing aside, I mean, isn't there philosophically a part of this that seems as though, hey, I can't sell this all here, but if I had a national market,
Oh, 100%.
I would be able to sell it everywhere, and I would be able to sell it all.
And probably
I
sell it
don't know that
at
mindset
higher
works, right?
higher to then I could sell it to a wholesaler, maybe below my normal retail price, but higher than I would sell it to a wholesaler, and then do some margin blending with shipping, where I say the shipping cost is $20, even though it's really $30, but I take it off,
Right.
the margin
You've
side.
found the way to make it sort of cost effective. I see. I'm more like, does anybody really want it? If no one's buying it in your local market, are people really gonna want to try it other places?
I think it's a way that if you're hyped in a small area for you to try expanding without having to really do it with very little risk.
So you
So there
see
there are distributors though that are actively approaching breweries that they see would be worth experimenting in other markets, and they're handling all of the logistics for that. Obviously, they're taking their margin, but from my perspective, it's just super easy. Like, can we afford to sell you our cases at this price, and you're gonna distribute a whole pallet to New York City at all the places people like to drink beer from other states? Fine. I'd much rather do that than
Pack up a million boxes.
pack up a million boxes. On the flip side, I do see an opportunity for new businesses to come up that you are kind of like the Uber of distributors. So if there's a guy who...
Or like the mobile canner of distributors is the way I was thinking of it.
Yeah.
They just show up and do all that stuff for you, and you pay them a price.
Oh,
or
so
something.
there's that side. I like
Okay.
that. The other side I was thinking is like, okay, so at what point, if you're doing direct to consumer, like how do they define a consumer, and how do they follow where this beer is going? Is it going to an individual, or is it going to an entity in another state that has a big warehouse? And they're all of a sudden just getting all their friends who they said, hey, I got the hookup on Hop Butcher, I got the hookup on whatever beers from different markets. But
So a direct
it's all
consumer
coming,
could be a pallet shipped LTL of.
I don't know. Is that possible?
Oh no. There's
you-
caps at like 20
right.
cases a person or no. It was
Some
something.
statutes
per day?
have the caps right.
Right. Hey,
But
to save on
the
shipping, can I
business-
put
the
in 5
businesses-
orders at once? and
Yeah.
Get 100 cases shipped?
Right. And this doesn't include existing retailers. Like the Beer Temple could not participate in this direct-to-consumer shipping.
No, that's the weirdest part.
Why
is
not?
Like, well, why?
That's the
why,
other
why
thing.
on
You
earth,
called me up and
or-
said, hey, I'm from Philly, go Eagles.
Right.
And all of a sudden they love Goldfinger Original Lager, and they want, like, for the next 4 months, they want me to send them, like, 20 cases a week.
Or what about...
I would be giving
Right.
it to you, and go ahead, you take care of it. And
What about
that's
Scratch? I mean, Scratch comes up every several months. They do a round trip, one day, 13-hour drive. I mean, what if they could just, put on a truck and send it right to us or something like that? But they can't.
Why can't Scratch put it on?
Because wouldn't that be direct to consumer?
No, Scratch can.
No, now we're talking a different level.
Yeah, this is different.
distribution.
Scratch,
Okay.
can put it on any courier service, and any freight logistics. and
Oh,
send
I
to
guess
you
it would
direct.
just be a delivery
Yeah,
service
that's all
then.
they need to do.
Okay, can they do that? Can
They
you just have a
absolutely do that
normal
now.
delivery
They
service?
self-distribute?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they can 100%.
Okay.
do that.
All right.
This is
They don't have to drive 13 fucking hours
Yeah,
to
right.
come up. That's ridiculous. When I heard that, I was like, those poor people.
Right.
They have better things to do in their southern paradise.
This is something that I don't think is going to solve any brewery's problems. To Ashley's point, if you're not selling it, you're not selling it. And giving it to some blind consumer is not going to want to, that's not going to save you. In this case, I think I think that like Cruise has the potential to benefit from it because when they did pass legislation to do that, open up that like class 3 brewer's license, which you could hold a brew pub license and self-distribute up to 2,000 barrels or whatever, 200. Well, now they're trying to one of the things in that legislation was to raise it to two grand. We could not qualify for that because the physical location 900 West Randolph is partially owned by hospitality group, so it's in violation of Tide House. So Cruise operates, and then we have a different license for our co-packer. We have to technically buy beer from ourselves, which is silly if we want to serve it at the brew pub. But that's a whole other legal thing. But in an instance like this, where we can't self-distribute, Luchador Series is a great example. We don't do a ton of volume. I think it's about like 20 U.S. beer barrels worth of release a year. I mean, it's a decent amount, but and it's I'm stupid enough just to do 6 different brands. So we might have 80 cases of one beer, we might have 30 cases of another, 20 cases of another in cans, 12-ounce cans. We don't always sell all of it. And we can't just go to our distributor and say, hey, do you want to buy 10 cases of this stuff? You can put it in the beer temples and the beer on the walls, but they will deny because it's not worth their time. And if they can't get placement in larger retailers, so now, if we don't sell through
they
all
would
of
have,
that.
10 years ago, they would have said okay, but nowadays they'll say no. It's a good point.
Then we get stuck in this really weird place where we've got this really great specialty beer that is it's excellent. Yeah, it has a demand for it, but we also release it in the same week that Maplewood Cup, Half Acre Benthic, Goose Prop. There's like 2 more. Or Rev Deepwood's dropping. All this barrel aged beer is consolidated into 3 weeks, so the money doesn't go far from the consumer. So we're always left with some. I'm staring at like 30 cases that could go somewhere.
And move fast.
And we're just dragging through it because everybody's barrel-aged, beered out, and
now it's going to be warmer soon.
Yeah, so, and then it becomes vintage. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But
you don't want it to be vintage, not in your cellar.
Right.
Let it be vintage in somebody else's.
So in a very specific case like that, we could benefit from moving at least a little bit of it.
Right. And again, I see that as a distributor problem because the retailer does want that beer, but the distributor doesn't want to take it from point A to point B. It's not worth
small
them
volumes.
Entering a new SKU into their system. It's just not worth it.
What does a distributor want to do though? What do they want to do?
They want us
little
to drop
work for as
500.
most. Yeah,
they want to get dropped 500 cases of something and
have it all
and
go the
put
next
it
day.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Hey, can I go back to something Ashley said? Ashley, did you say that a self-distro brewery does not need to actually distribute their own stuff? They could just hire a courier.
Yeah, they can have a freight logistics service deal with it. I believe the latest round of edits to that bill that got passed in 21 said either your trucks, your employees, or with a service you hire, but it can't be what they're referring to as a common carrier. And I think when they try and say what that is, they mean FedEx or UPS, right?
Right.
So yeah, I mean you can find somebody who does the run to Rockford.
Right. There's a couple of smaller companies that handle
Absolutely.
a few different wine companies, a couple of smaller beer distributors that have consolidated that stuff. I think that's a little under fact. Like that's new to me. I mean, that's interesting. That could open up a lot of doors for certain people that wanted to get out current, contract and say, people I've tried to work with, I've always built better relationships with suppliers than I have distributors because things change year to year. So the people at Rev and the people at Metropolitan, they know where we're at, no matter who they're with this year or that year. That's interesting to me. Interesting point.
Let me ask a question. So it has been anecdotally, it seems like whenever this legislation is put forward by the guild, it's because somebody is pushing for it. So there's some brewery who thought this was a good idea, or a group of breweries. Who do you think is interested in this legislation passing, or what type of breweries?
I don't know that this is a brewery issue so much as it is a national guild BA kind of movement.
So you think the BA is saying to the local state guilds, we want to make this a priority. We would like you to push this.
I think it's not any one brewery, but if enough of the members of that local guild say, yeah, why not? Let's try it. They go ahead and add it to the agenda, which is filled with other things as well that they want to try and get past. And right now, oh man, the efforts are better spent on trying to do what Colorado did with limiting when franchise laws apply, or trying to do what Wisconsin has with 300,000 self-distributed barrels before you have to worry about anything, right?
Right.
Making the business work within that three-tiered system, as opposed to forcing the business outside of it. When by all means experiment with it. Let's take 2 or 3 states, pass it, and see how it does and whether or not it works.
So why do you think the BA is so interested in doing it and making it like wine, where I think there's like 44 states that you can do it if you're a winery?
But wine is different. This is back to Zach's point about not knowing how things can work and how they get shipped and everything. My God, the winery guys really do it in a way that craft should be modeling. When you see the wine distributors come by, they've got that stuff in their trunks, and they're there to make the sale, and they will sell the stuff from the trunk, to do it. I'm not just a salesperson; I'm also the salesperson and the delivery guy.
A client.
I'm doing the small batch. I'm making it happen, and maybe that's the model for craft, and beer just hasn't cottoned on, because beer's entire distribution model for a long time revolved around what we had been doing when craft started, with giant macro craziness, and I can sell this anywhere.
I also think the franchise laws aren't as strong with wine and spirits, because they come and go and get traded around all the time.
It depends on the state. But yeah, I mean, there are plenty of states that have super strong franchise laws and plenty of states that have very lax ones.
Well, here in Illinois, the franchise laws are stronger for beer than they are for...
They don't exist for wine and spirits.
Right. So I could see why a distributor wouldn't care that a winery does direct-to-consumer, because if they're with them, they can just leave tomorrow. But if you have a brewery, you got them
they care very
more
much,
or less
and they
forever.
Can't just leave. So even many of the great franchise laws that we have for beer came into effect in the late 70s, early 80s, early 70s for some states. Most of those franchise laws merely parroted what was already in the Miller Coors, the AB and Bev franchise agreements. Just because they don't have franchise laws doesn't mean that the distributors don't protect themselves. Every smart distributor has a contract, if they don't have franchise law protection, that absolutely emplaces everything you would see in franchise law in their contract. Mm-hmm. So exclusivity, buyout, force protection for the price on buyout. Mm-hmm. If you leave me, you're going to pay me 3x, 4x, 10x multiples.
But then
all those protections.
How do spirits then move? Because I know Jose Cuervo moved distributors. Like there's no way they can do 3x.
Money like you wouldn't believe. They absolutely the new distributor will pay the 3x, knowing that they're going to have that brand for 6 more years and make plenty of money with it. 100% that money gets paid in a way that is it's obscene on a scale that craft probably doesn't understand. It's not obscene to regular people doing real deals out in the world. It's just a regular business transaction that, yes, I will absolutely, if I recognize I can make some money over the course of 4 years, invest the money that would be a loss for 2 years to 3 years for me to make sure that in year 4, 5, 6, 7, I'm making more. Or guess what? I see the advantage of what's going on with your brand right now, but I recognize the 4 or 5 different categories that you're not in that I can get you in as your new distributor. I'm going to get you there and make that money back in a year, and then have that as profit for the next 4 years.
Shark Tank, man.
I don't know, man. Jose Cuervo.
I have a conspiracy
I can't
theory.
even imagine. Yeah, I want to hear it. That's what I want to hear.
So what is the third-party direct-to-consumer? Tavor?
Yeah.
Tavor is one.
Tavor. What are the odds you see Tavor on the trade floor and as a sponsor of the Brewers Association during JABF? And it just like part of the brew pub. When we started doing third-party delivery service through DoorDash, Uber, blah blah blah, or Uber Eats, all that. I mean, you have to adjust your pricing for that, and it might as well be a distributor at that point in time. The money is coming from somewhere, so we start using these third-party services to send our beer on. Somebody's still making a percentage of that, and that third party is.
I mean, I'd argue if it became like federally legal, Tavour would maybe go out of business pretty soon because everyone could then. They wouldn't go out of business, but their power is in the fact that they're the only ones doing it.
But does every brewery want to set up their own logistics team? Don't they just want to be told,
logistics.
Put this in a box.
The retailers like Binny's. Imagine Binny's or Total Wine. That you think that Tavour can compete with those guys?
Absolutely not.
No way. No way.
But
not if they put their mind to it.
But there's breadcrumbs, and there's a lot of money in breadcrumbs.
Yeah, for sure.
So New York, you can do this. Have you gotten any feedback from?
You can do what?
You can do direct shipping,
but within the state or to the entire country?
Within a few states around the area. I know, like the Trillium maybe does. I know, like Suarez will do it as well. So, have you heard any kind of feedback from the retailers that has had a detrimental effect on their business?
I haven't heard one way or the other. I mean, you were just telling me they could do it, so I haven't even. Yeah.
I'm not entirely. I don't know. We did it during COVID, didn't we?
Yeah,
like
they
breweries,
allowed it, and then they took it away.
Yeah, we had it for a while, and maybe part of that was no one could get to the brewery to buy it. But how was the experience? Was it enjoyable? Did you guys do it?
No, we didn't do it. We opened in 2020, July, so we were...
No, you're right in the middle. You should have been doing it.
I could only assume it was a pain in the ass. You're answering emails, or there's some app or service that you're using that's dealing with all of that and just telling you what needs to go where. But somebody still has to stand at the POS and ring up every pack that's to get dealt with. Punch in every credit card number unless you're paying a service to do that for you.
I mean, the way
when I ordered it was all online.
Here's how I could see it going is you have a brewery that has enough cachet that the fan base will do a direct to consumer. Once it's everywhere, there's no need to do it. So it has to be there has to be some sort of cachet to this brand. But if then it doesn't see distro, nobody else ever sees it. If they then lose the cool factor with that small group, they have no retail partners not because even the retail partners, if people are out there being like, well, that's because the retail partners are being spiteful and they won't do it because they're doing direct to consumer, but it's much more organic than that. If Tom starts doing direct to consumer and people as a result stop asking for Goldfinger, like we don't even know necessarily that he's doing direct to consumer. We just know people are getting it elsewhere, or we don't even know they're getting it elsewhere. We just know they don't want to buy it here anymore, so we don't bring it in anymore. Yeah. So then, if then all of a sudden, Tom's direct to consumer thing kind of falls flat, and he comes to us and says, "Hey, I have beer for you." We say, "Well, no, nobody asks for your beer." No, I don't know. We'll take a case maybe. And then you're starting from the ground up again.
So then does that justify just letting it happen? Because,
maybe.
Because I'll give myself credit, but I don't know if I should be giving everybody else credit. But if I had the choice between shipping some beer out to a different market or supplying one of the retailers that has had a huge significance for us in our local market, and we know that because our beer is on the shelves there, that we've grown our fan base way more.
Right.
I'm always going to go that route.
Right.
So why do you care if there are people who aren't like me, breweries who aren't like me, who don't make those decisions, who don't have that nuance?
Yeah.
You just stop carrying them.
Yeah.
Because people are going to stop buying them, and so
it's not like I think everyone's going to go to direct to consumer, and the people who are, I think, are going to be pretty hardened geeks about
Yep.
it, and those are the most fickle consumers anyway, and they
Right.
aren't going to be loyal to your store. They're loyal to the hype. So
I
I've learned that a long time ago.
I understand where you guys are coming from, and I told you how I would think about it. I understand not everybody thinks that way, but I also think that then you cut your losses either way, and you guys are going to be fine because there's plenty of other people who think like me, who understand the value of our local retailers and bars, etc.
No, I think it's yeah.
Can we zoom out on that for a second? So like the bigger picture for me on this is, I feel like at first I was very anti this, and then I'm like, well, I guess if retailers were included, then we could do it too. Then it's a rising tide lifts all shifting. But at this point, I just don't like the idea because the whole stay-at-home Amazonification of like drinking by yourself at home to me is such the antithesis of my type of business. And I know a lot of other businesses out there and now breweries who have tap rooms, which are more or less bars. Like the social aspect of beer, like let's not chase that. Let's not chase that out of beer.
I
I
mean,
don't think this is going to replace your local pub. Totally. I don't think it is. But the more we encourage people to like sit at home and drink and watch Netflix, one less person going out to Goldfinger or the Beer Temple or the Olympic or your local pizza joint or your liquor store down the street. Like, I'm
Couldn't
thinking,
agree more.
And maybe it's too far, but like that's a bigger scale of like, is you're training our society to be more insular and be by themselves instead of like going to the pub and having a pint of something that you've never had before and strike up a conversation with some weird guy next to you. Like that's like one of life's joys to me. And I don't see that being encouraged anymore. Especially
I've seen you do
like
that
this, where
actually. I've seen you go over and introduce yourself to somebody that you thought was somebody else, found out it wasn't the person you thought it was, and then still had a conversation for an hour with them.
Why did I do that when Chris?
That was because you're like, is that guy? And I was like, yeah, that is that guy.
I think that's such a small percentage of people, though. I just don't know if that's going to change things much.
Yeah,
What,
I think
the people who are just going to stay at home.
The Amazon, Netflix.
I don't know. I mean, I was talking to Michael Roper, and
they get their Target delivered, they get their groceries delivered.
Yeah.
All that stuff is getting delivered now. So the infrastructure catches up, and it's cheaper, and all of a sudden, it's not $30 a case to ship a case of Goldfinger to your house. It's 12.
But if it's 12, but guess who's getting bent over? It's Goldfinger's getting bent over if that case is coming in at $12 because that third party or that shipping is everything. So there's no incentive for you to do that.
There's no incentive for us. But I agree. I don't like to encourage the solitude that our society is flocking toward.
Well, it's convenience,
agoraphobia.
It's so much easier to just click a button and have it show up than have it like go out to your house. And I mean, I get in these arguments with my friends and family, and it's like, no, you have to leave your house. You have to do all these things. It's
but then
good.
you see like these big releases that there's some breweries that are still doing releases in person.
Yeah.
And the majority of the comments are like, oh, I missed beer lines. I missed waiting. So like
that I think is also insane, but that's fine.
You're lying.
But at least there's still that desire to go to a place, drink a beer that's outside of your home.
Yeah.
And I agree that we should keep encouraging that because we are a bar too. We have a tap room, and eventually if people can get Goldfinger at home, and I've had this thought a lot because we get a lot of customers asking us for sixtels, like, oh, I have a kegerator at my house. And that's an easy transaction for me if I wanted to move volume. But this is also the same guy who comes in 4 times a week. So is he going to come in like once a week? Is he not going to come in for a week? Like, so do I even want to sell this sixtel here? I mean, not that we can at this point, but
sure, that's an interesting way of thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, I've thought about this quite a bit recently. We're going off on a tangent, but that's fine. I also think that bars and tap rooms especially, although I don't know why, because I think it's to their detriment, frankly. Like, what's with all these tap rooms closing at like 9 p.m. now? I think it's such a bad look for their brand that like we're a beer company and it's 8:30. We're here to we're cool and we're here to have fun, and that's what our brand is kind of built around. It's 8:30. Last call. And then you got to get out. I think
we close at 10 because it's the
money
foot traffic
anymore.
dies. The foot traffic
Nobody's
is dead in
around.
the West Loop.
Nobody's
at 10.
staying out.
I mean, but we stay open till 11, 12 on Friday, Saturday. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're not open late because there's just.
Here's my question:
especially right now.
Was it there before? Was it there before COVID that on a Tuesday night you actually had business past 10, or did we just stay open and nobody thought? about it?
A little bit. But I guess West Loop, middle of winter.
Right.
There's just not a whole lot. We'll adjust hours as need be during the summer, which we probably end up staying open till 11. But right now, it's just reacting to the moment versus, and just trying to be smart about it. Once we have the patio, that changes things. But
Yeah.
I think in our case,
know.
there's just not a whole lot happening.
To me, it's like to have a bartender, stay until midnight. How much money are you losing to have a bartender there until midnight, or maybe two bartenders there until midnight?
Well, let me ask it a different way. What do you need to make that worthwhile? Is it?
I don't think you need much. And
are you saying I will have the bartender there and I'll stay open even though no one comes in for those 2 hours?
There's definitely value in that.
Yeah,
I think there is value in that because I think you're showing that when somebody does come up that you're open.
right. And averaged out over time. Look, if I have one night, in a month where 50 people are there spending money and dealing with it, then I've paid for those other 29 nights.
And then the next time they're out late at night, they know that you're there. Because guess what? Here's the other thing. I'll even go further. If your last call is at 8:30, people aren't coming there at 7:30, man. No one's coming there at 7:30.
Don't tell this to the tap room. Save it for yourself.
That's what I said. Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, no one's going to come at 7:30 if your last call is at 8:30.
Right.
So you're losing.
Right.
You're losing it all day. I wouldn't go there because I'm gonna have to then leave and go somewhere else. Why don't I just go to an actual bar
I'm with
for
you.
adults who like to stay out?
I've
That's
got
the way I think of
opposite.
it.
As
Have some
someone
hams
who
and
works
a couple of
downtown,
Right.
and you're
So
good.
I say it's like,
Well,
it's rough now, but I mean, I think if we're going to try to get people to come back out, I mean,
But
people,
but staff behavior has changed in the last
I
couple
agree.
of years.
The staff doesn't care. So I was at a place that called last call. There was 30 people in this place. And there was last call. They didn't care.
Yeah, they're
Closed
Yeah.
up.
leaving money on the table.
I went to another place that had what they called last call at 8:45 or something, and there was 20, 25 people. It was, I would say, this place was 60% at capacity. That's a lot, to me for a Thursday night.
Yeah.
Closed. And then I was talking to the taproom manager. I texted him. I was like, "What's going on?" I was like, "You've got this many people here." He's like, "Oh, it was way more last Thursday." I was like, "Make the money when the money's there."
Right.
But the staff was "Nope, this is when I close."
Do they not get tipped?
I
mean,
don't
is
know.
Is it the
I don't
tips aren't
know.
there?
It's not even. That's not even enough. Unfortunately,
I think it has to come down from the top and be like, "You are open until this time. Do." I don't know, mop. I don't know, do something like dust or study for your Cicerone exam.
Yeah.
We have bartenders who study
Yep.
for their Cicerone when it's
Yeah,
slow up
absolutely.
here, and I say that's fine. If anyone ever needs to study, they're getting your study cards because that's company property. No, I'm joking, but
You probably got a horde of those cards.
he failed,
Right.
and he failed it every time. They're terrible. No, but I think part of getting back there is being open late, and you have to show that you're. I think it's not just bars too. I mean, I think it's late night food joints. They're all closed. But then you
Yeah.
go to Diner Grill on Irving Park. Thing is slammed because it's the only one.
The slinger.
The slinger. You go and get a slinger. You want to get a slinger at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. Guess what?
Who doesn't want the slinger?
You might not have room at the counter because they're the only ones. So,
Well, the way we see it in our town,
restaurants are more expensive to keep open than a bar. But
that's true. We close on the weekdays at 10. So last call is 9:30 ish. If there's a lot of people drinking, could be 10. But we have a partner in town that's open at least an hour, if not 2 hours later than us, that sells our original lager and sells it for $1 less than we do at the tap room. So we're cool with that. We're good. We're staying open till 10. And if people want to keep drinking our beer, they can go have it for a little cheaper, less than a mile away from us.
Yeah.
So from our perspective, it's kind of like helping our whole community.
Yeah. 10,
like we have our place.
10 is
like,
decent. 9, I think, I put that in the realm of unacceptable for me.
Yeah, 9 is pretty
You don't really
early.
want me here, do you?
Like, I mean, there's places that it's like for real. It's like 7:45, and it's like, well, I'm not going there.
Someone who stops working at 8:30, yeah, 9 is.
It's like, come on.
That could be a staffing thing too, because that's a 1 8-hour shift versus a 10-hour shift,
Yeah.
or an 8-hour shift with an opener and a closer, and 3 and 4 hours in between, or whatever, So, I mean, it sucks to close that early, but it's got to. I would like to think there is at least some thought process behind it.
Yeah, there probably is, and it's easy.
You'll be home just in time for the mail to get there with your beer in the
Oh,
mail.
yeah.
to
It's all nice and
have it
warm.
during
But here's the thing
consumer-
that's great about here is like I can just say these things and I don't have to think about the staffing issues behind it. I do think it's a bad look.
Yeah.
I think it's a bad look. If you're going to a place that like you're taking a friend to a place, it's like, oh, there's this really cool place I want to take you to, and you roll in, you eat dinner, you go to a cool place for dinner, you roll there, like, no, we're going to go to this bar, this tap room, and you get there, and they're like, okay, well, we're calling last call in 5 minutes. You're like, what? It's 8:25. And, like, that is a bad look.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to have, like, ramifications beyond that hour of sales if you're a brewery, because it's going to be like...
That's interesting to say, Chris, because I think you're right. Even in my town, all the breweries are done at 9, 10, but all the bars are 11, 12.
Yeah, we're losing you. I think his.
I'm just saying it's interesting that's like a brew pub thing, a brew pub tap room thing of being closed early, but bars are later in general. I think that's fact. That's interesting.
Yeah, we're losing you. I don't know. You might have to turn off your video or something like that. Like your bandwidth. It says your bandwidth as well.
The suburbs are a little different from the city, though.
Yeah.
Everything's earlier in the suburbs.
Yeah.
You have like 2 dive bars in a 20-mile radius that are open till 3. Those are like your only
Why are the
options.
suburbs so cool? Let's take a quick break. I need to refresh my beer. We'll come back. There's just one quick thing that I want to talk about when we get back. But we'll be back soon with more of the Insiders Roundtable. And we're back with the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. It is a classic Insiders Roundtable episode. I'm your host, Chris Quinn, and I am joined by Ashley Brandt, Jacob Sembrano, Tom Beckman, and Zach Rotello. Thanks, everyone, for coming back. Yes. I think it was alluded that the BA was kind of pushing for this legislation. I'm using that. I'm using anything I can as a natural segue, Ashley,
That's a good segue.
to this next one. Yeah, not really, but I noticed that that the BA. There was an article in Brewbound that the BA's revenue is growing once again. It had been down. I mean, they were hugely negative during the pandemic when there was no events. I think most of their revenue comes from events. So the revenue is back up. Their event revenue is back up, but their membership dues are the lowest since 2016. And it was just kind of a mention. It was like a sentence or two in this bigger kind of story. But to me, it was the most interesting
But they didn't
one.
break those out, right? Like, I don't know if that's breweries or if that's all the people who are affiliates with breweries who paid the $150 to get new
As an
brewer.
associate.
Yeah,
associate
right,
member.
exactly. Not even as an associate, but like you
Brewery
can,
and planning.
there's brewery and planning. I think maybe it is associate.
Associate, because I think I could be an associate member, and I think I've done it in the past just to get a cheaper
Rate.
ticket
Yep.
to the CBC.
Yes.
I have to imagine, again, with no data, 0 data points, I still have to imagine that the majority of their members are breweries. Now, it could be because like some big breweries are dropping out and they pay the most, but I think the big breweries are the ones who are most likely to be in it because they have the most say in this and for the lobbying arm of the
To
BA.
want more from what the BA can do with lobbying than others, because the BA's swath, their wide tail of influence, supports those operations, those larger operations. Yeah, I don't know what a small brewery gets from the BA.
That's a great question.
Right. Well, that's what I mean, because I do know.
We're going to get into it.
Yeah, because I do think I have heard from small breweries that are like, no, I'm not a member of the BA because I don't think they have, represent me. So I was just thinking, like, what are the reasons that the BA's membership numbers could be the lowest since 2016? That's really low, man.
They have to break out that membership
Yeah.
between associate and non-associate and brewery versus associate stuff to make sure that that's some kind of accurate head count in what we're talking about.
But given the sheer amount of breweries, that is pretty staggering.
Did it say that?
Yeah.
Did it say? I glanced over it.
Yeah,
What you had
I'll
sent.
open it up.
Did it say that membership fees had decreased? The fees had decreased in addition to, or the fees have become more expensive?
It
The
didn't
fees
say.
have become more expensive.
I mean,
says in
It
that.
said
does
the
it.
fees have become more expensive
Yeah.
in that article. Tom's right.
Okay.
Wow, that's like a double.
Yes.
It's like a
Yes, it is.
double down.
Right. So, yeah.
I was trying to extrapolate whether it was these mergers of the ones who pay the most, because it's total revenue, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so is it a combination of
Well,
like
total
these-
revenue is up, but the membership dues continue to decline, dropping from 4.5 million to 4.3 million, the lowest amount of dues generated since 2016. The BA raised the price of membership dues this month, its first increase in 18 years. So it just
like Ashley said, it's got to be broken out because some of that could be the result of these big breweries that were paying separate fees who've merged, like
Dogfish in Boston.
Yep, and Bell's and New Belgium, and then some of the other data the BA has come out with is like the majority of breweries in this country now are like less than 500 barrels, and they pay nothing to be a member. So maybe it's just not balanced out.
yeah, I mean, the only other thing it says is that dues peaked after events. Membership dues make up their second largest source of revenue, and advertising and sponsorship revenues have increased in 2022. So it just seems like membership dues, but I guess we could have a breakout of what type of membership dues. Yeah. But it isn't sponsorships and advertising. So, I mean, it's some form of membership. So even if it's not breweries, why are their membership dues down if the price of the membership has stayed the same and the number of breweries is up? I mean, somebody's leaving, whether it's, the associate members or, maybe like BSG or somebody wants to be, or malt handling group wants to be a member. But, I mean,
Somebody forgets to renew for 2 or 3 years. Somebody doesn't want to go to CFC because
they don't like.
Nothing there,
Why
like,
is it in
how many new breweries
Colorado?
can start up
Why is it
every
in
year?
Denver
Right.
every other year? I mean, to me, what jumps out is the concept that people aren't finding value in the membership anymore. And
But no one said that. It's just like
I said to me,
this is all speculation about
To
why
me-
why we leaving, right?
right.
No,
Of course it is.
that's. I mean, you said it. best.
Ashley, you've been on this show before.
I've been to that conference, and I know that it's basically for a new brewery starting up or somebody in their second year who may have one piece of individual things they want, but otherwise it's, or maybe you want to go buy the equipment off the floor, right? That was
Right.
That's a big thing, is to show up and like, oh, I need my 50-barrel system that they've used as this. I can get it cheaper here.
This one's been cut in half, and I
Right.
can look at it
Yeah,
now.
right.
Can I buy it for half? What were you going to say, Jacob?
Oh well, I once bought a floor model mattress that was really cheap, and that's just exactly what that reminded me of. Is there value in it? And every year we renew, we ask ourselves that exact same question. Yeah.
So why do you guys continue to remain members? What value do you feel that you get from it?
Well, the access to data,
Right.
from our controller, accountant, owner, and marketing. There's a lot of wealthy data there. For me, as production brewer, I use it. I don't use it as a resource anymore because I
Did
have.
you used to?
When we opened up, when we were starting, new brewery, year 2, a lot of really helpful data.
What? Like what? I mean, it doesn't need to be specifics, but like what areas of data were you gathering that was useful to you?
Kind of like in terms of capacity productions,
Okay.
The value of how to utilize your system to its full potential, blah blah blah.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff like that. But I haven't I haven't even logged into the website for 5+ years. The only time I do it is to enroll in GABF submissions, and I still and I don't remember any. I have to ask the organizer, who it used to be Chris Williams. I don't know who it is anymore. If it's, or maybe it is like, what's our brewery ID again?
Right.
Yeah, and we stopped going to GA. We submit beer for judging every year. We stopped going about 6 years ago. We don't distribute in that area. It's 3 days now of at least having to be there and be present, at least for a little bit. We get there's volunteers. It's an expensive trip when you want to send 4 or 5 people. And 1 out of every 100 people that come, they're like, oh, hey, I've heard of your brewery. I go to Chicago all the time. Oh, where in Chicago do you live? And it's like, oh, in Plainfield or Elmhurst or something. It's like, all right,
Rockford.
They're not a pain. They're not they're not paying our bills, unfortunately. It just doesn't. We can put that money somewhere else.
Yeah. Okay. Are you a member, Tom?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And have you? I mean, you're a newer brewery, right?
Yes. There's been some value. I think they have some good information on how to. A lot of it is how to like set up new aspects of your brewery. I used some guides for how to set up a lab, which I had learned, but it was a good refresher. But yeah, I don't really log into the website or.
Okay.
I used some of the data to develop our initial business plan when we were brewery and planning. That was very helpful.
Put into your deck type thing.
Put into our deck.
The pitch deck.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is
what Bart Watson
give us money
says.
because look, this
Right.
is growing.
Right. I mean, that's all I ever use it for. I mean, I'm not a brewer, but is like what Bart Watson's kind of State of the Union that he puts out every year.
Here's the horrible thing that's happening this year to craft.
Yeah.
No, here's the horrible thing.
Well, here's
this year
the thing
that's
he just
happening.
came out with, I think today, was
It was
like
a horrible thing, right?
Yeah, it was like hops. Like there's going to be a reckoning with the oversupply of hops. Get ready.
Hops and not enough beer.
Right.
Yeah,
but it had been all like sunshine for a long time. Now he's been all doom and gloom for several years now.
Because it is kind of doom and gloom,
yeah.
especially with raw material sourcing. But
Beer is fattening and has many calories. Oh no, Bart Watson.
Yes.
I have explored the forum, so I always get that's
daily
it's
email?
hard, the
It's
digest.
Some of it is really heartbreaking.
It is. It is.
Oh, is
I
it?
mean, the quality of the advice and the discussions is just so bad.
Oh.
I'm also a member of the Master Brewers Association, and those are like, oh, wow, this guy knows way more than I do, and he's really helping me out.
Okay.
I haven't found that in the Brewers, in the BA Digest.
Got
Have
it.
you?
Master Brewers is generally a more higher level stuff.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, I mean, my guess is that could be some anecdotal kind of vibes of why it's going down. I mean, it just seems like people aren't getting the value out of the BA. So, for you, Tom, does it feel like I could see like a brewery feeling like, well, I am a small independent craft brewer. I should be a member of this. I'm going to give my dues because whatever they're using the money for, it's a rising tide. It's going to be good. I could see that. I kind of feel less and less about that with the BA over time, but maybe I'm just more jaded or I understand more. I don't know. But I mean, I do think it's helpful. It was surprising to me. I mean, there's so many more breweries. Why is the membership going down? That's not a good sign, Ashley.
Yeah, look, if this organization is geared towards giving a conference for people who want to start a brewery, once you've started a brewery, you no longer really want to be at that conference.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I used to go to CBC most years, and I used to like sit in on a lot of the talks and try to find the ones that might be like retail relevant. And then I started going to CBC and maybe finding one talk that was like brewers related, but something that I found interesting. And then I'd go again and didn't go to any talks. And then I went again and like walked into the building where the conference was and like walked through the showroom and then
They're
don't really go to
see in
CB.
Denver.
Yeah,
Let's go see a
exactly.
park. Let's go get
It's like, isn't weed legal here? It was like then the next year. And so it's, yeah.
You might see something cool on the trade floor.
The trade floor
and
can be
then-
cool.
and then you realize that you can go home and just like people can soon purchase their direct-to-consumer beer, you can also log in and listen to all of those things in the comfort of your own home. So there's really no advantage.
Direct-to-consumer canning lines.
Yeah, I mean, I think the discovery is maybe one thing you get. Like you look at it, but you can also get that from a brochure that they have of like who's here. Yeah. But it is useful to like walk around. But I think one day on the trade floor, I would collect a bunch of business cards and then be like, okay.
It's fun to go talk to people. The TTB usually has a booth there, and at most alcohol conventions, the TTB has a booth, and it's actually very interesting.
Got a sweet hookup on custom neon signs there one time.
I think the trade show was the first CBC I went to was last year, and we were a year and a half-ish old, and I got quite a bit of value from the trade show. When I looked at the list before, I tried to come up with a map and the plan and stuff, but it's just so overwhelming. There's so many different options. Actually physically being there and looking at it really helped us. We haven't purchased it yet, but it completely opened my mind to possibilities for canning that we didn't know existed.
We lose Zach. Did he leave? Maybe we'll call back. He was having some networking problems, or maybe he just is showing us how he feels. Anyway, go on.
Exactly. So, do you have to be a BA member to go to that CBC?
I don't think so, but the fees are a lot more.
Okay.
Yeah. You can always just
we got value out of the trade show. The talks were terrible. I brought my other brewer, Jeremy, because he doesn't have much of a formal education. He has some formal education in brewing, and I saw a couple modules on like electrical troubleshooting and pumps and stuff, and I'm like, you know what, this could be valuable. So I sent him to those. I went to a couple other ones, and we came back together, and we're like, yeah, we're not any smarter.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Yeah, something to kind of keep an eye on. I mean, I think overall the BA being strong is better than it not being strong. I would think so. Hopefully it turns around. But yeah, there's one more very quick thing I think we can do because we kind of went through that pretty fast. And we don't need Zach for this one. Don't tell him I said that. So if you want to send in a letter, I should also say you can send it to insiders@craftbeertemple.com, or you can send it an actual handwritten letter or type. Doesn't need to be handwritten. Print it out.
I bet a handwritten letter would get read on this show.
Oh,
Can you imagine
it
that?
definitely does. We've had a typed on a typewriter letter one
Nice.
time. It's pretty cool. A lot of postcards too. But anyway, that would go to the Beer Temple at 3173 North Elston Avenue in Chicago. That's 60618, and we have that in the show notes. So any kind of questions that you guys have or comments about past shows, we have a bunch. I'm trying to catch up because we have some that I'm trying to get to. But this is a pretty quick one. This one comes from Jeremy. Oh, also, sign the letters the way you want to be called out, because we do have some industry people who sometimes say things that they don't want public or associated with them. But anyway, this is not one of those types, but this comes from Jeremy. And he says, "Hi, Insiders. Quick question for you. Why aren't more beers aged in unpeated Scotch barrels? I feel like in America, Scotch barrels are associated with heavy smokiness, but I believe that only a small portion of Scotches are actually peated. Is this a cost thing, a taste thing, an unexplored option? Looking forward to hearing your insights and smoking hot takes." See, he gets it. Ashley, you don't need to be right. Just have a hot take. Don't be upset.
Smoking hot take.
Yeah. So, Jacob, you were talking about barrel-aged beers earlier, you and I. Any reason why you don't think Scotch barrels, unpeated, so maybe more like a used bourbon or like a sherry barrel?
All right. I've certainly bought Scotch barrels in the past. I just don't think, as the barrel brokers that deal with imports, I just don't think that would be super specialty at this point in time. That was several years ago. I know that a barrel company out of Colorado was selling like some sherry finished Scotch barrels, which are quite nice. But I just don't see them pop up very much.
I've heard they're really expensive too.
They're super expensive. So we get barrels through 3 different places. And again, I think they lean really heavily. What I'm seeing now, I haven't seen Scotch barrels up in a really long time. I don't think there's a demand there. And I gotta be honest, even if it's unpeated, why spend $499 on a nice Scotch whiskey cask that has to spend a long time getting to America versus a conventional 4-year bourbon barrel at $120 or something. I just don't see it. I don't know.
So they're just not as available.
They're not as available. I mean, there seems to be a pretty steady supply of rum barrels but I think that there's more of a desire for that than a unpeated Scotches.
Yeah.
Well, I would be curious. So technically, they're all aged in Scotch barrels, because Scotch is all aged in American bourbon barrels.
Maybe there's a cooperage to it.
So
maybe they get kicked back from the Scotch distillery to.
Well, it's not all,
somewhere
because
else.
the sherry barrels, there's sherry barrels too.
But they're imported sherry barrels, and they're first conditioned in a bourbon barrel and finished in a sherry barrel.
The Scotches are, but some of them are 100% in a sherry barrel, and you can get a sherry butt or something sent over that had Scotch in it. I mean, they have them over there. That would be interesting, probably really friggin' expensive to get like a Pedro Jimenez, like sherry.
Those are $600.
Right.
Those are awesome.
But they probably taste amazing.
Amazing. I'm sure. I would just be curious from a brewer's or from an aging standpoint, like, is there a difference? Let's say you get a bourbon barrel shipped to a Scotch distillery that is unpeated Scotch and brought back. Is the all malt unpeated Scotch character in that barrel that much different than what you would have pulled out of the straight bourbon barrel.
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at. Is the fleet is the boat worth an all malted distillate aged in oak, Missouri oak, or whatever? Or
Right.
Yeah.
Is it that much different than your Kentucky bourbon barrel?
Right.
Who knows? I mean, I think a cool thing to do. I like regionality in beer. I kind of wish there was maybe a little bit more of that. I like that you can't just get everything distilled everywhere. I like the idea that there's beers that you have to go to a certain place to be able to get. It'd be cool to see if some of the continental craft breweries start putting their beers in some of those barrels and kind of get a different regional flavor to their big barrel-aged stouts and see what they can find. I know that Scotch gets associated with peat, and people love to it seems like that is where a lot of the Scotch barrel-aged stuff goes, is in that peated stuff, and it very rarely works, I've found.
Yeah.
I've tasted ones that do work, but more often, I mean, some of the worst barrel-aged beers I've ever had have been in peated.
They have to be blended. They can be
yeah.
blended really nicely, but as is, they're not that.
Not to mention,
Yeah.
it's totally not the traditional Scotch ale at all.
Right.
Like, it's an American interpretation. Oh, this is from Scotland. It's got to have some peat then, right?
Right,
This is
right.
a beer style from Scotland.
But I could see something like a Scotch that had been in like a sherry finished, like a sherry cask kind of
Yeah.
that had Scotch in it, not just sherry, or just sherry. I mean, because brandy barrels taste good. So
Speaking of regional flavors, you might like this. I just met these distillers at the last Illinois Craft Brewers Guild meeting. I don't remember the name of their distillery, but I think it's downstate somewhere. They are doing all malt spirits.
distillate. Yeah, that's cool.
And the distiller discovered that there are actual peat bogs up north in Illinois, and he harvested some peat. He smoked the malt with the peat,
Jeez,
Illinois peat, and made a single malt.
that's
Like
awesome.
Illinois
That's got
Scotch.
it. Should be not too difficult to find. So I'll look that up and see who that is. That's interesting.
I thought it was pretty cool, though.
Yeah, that is cool. Illinois peat bog. I know Westland out in Seattle, there's like a peat bog out there that they have. So, I mean, it exists. Cool. Well, I think it's about that time. Thank you, Jeremy, by the way, for the letter. Very much appreciate that. Hopefully you got somewhat of an answer. Does anyone have anything they would like to say before we get out of here? Ashley, anything you want to say?
I'm trying to think. Normally, it's some kind of cause or a promotion or an event. There's the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild. Sorry, the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild has a conference coming up, March 6th and March 7th. That should be pretty good down in Bloomington, Illinois. So if anyone wants to come down and hear some lawyers talk, there'll be an amazing lawyer roundtable.
Now that you said this, I mean, I'm sure there'll be a lot of people there.
I'm sure there'll be many people who want to come here, but one of the lawyers speaking will be the main lawyer for the Brewers Association. The main lawyer for the guild will be there, and other lawyers will be there
Wow.
as well.
All the stars will be there.
I'm sure there are many other things going on at this conference, but I am going to talk with these lawyers.
Cool. Sounds great. I'll be far away from
I
there.
mean, it sounds like a lot of fun.
Cool.
I'm trying to think. Normally, there's some not-for-profit organization or some.
Well, you can speak up. We'll go around.
Yeah,
if you
I
think of
haven't.
something
I haven't
else.
thought of one.
Yeah, but anyway, good to see you. Thanks
to
for
see
coming
you,
on.
too.
It's been fun. No, I mean that. Thank you. And it has been. It's been too long. Tom, anything you want to say before we get out of here?
I would be remiss not to mention Mike, your co-host.
Mm-hmm.
We did a beer
right.
together.
Yeah.
That's coming out pretty soon in a couple weeks. I think March 11th is the date. But we brewed a rot beer at our brewery. We filled a tote, split the batch. He took his half over to his brewery, fermented it with his Saison yeast. He's splitting that batch into the Brett finished and the regular Saison finished. And we're doing a side by side by side
Neat.
That's cool.
debut at our tap room.
Nice. When's that going to be?
I think it's March 11th.
Okay.
But I will confirm
Cool.
as Jake is talking.
And February 25th, we've got Dark Lagers Day, not night, here at the Beer Temple. So
Saturday.
That's this Saturday.
Yeah, I'll try to get it out in time. I'll try to get this episode out.
Oh, well, I thought it was
see.
coming out next week. So
We'll see.
in that case, come to the Beer
Yeah,
Temple.
right. We'll have food and dark lagers and stuff like that. So cool. Well, thank you also for making the trip to Chicago to be on the show. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
Good having you.
It's far.
How long does it take you to get here? It takes pretty long, right?
It only took me 40 minutes.
Okay, that's a long
Not bad.
time.
But thanks for having me.
Yeah. And finally, Jacob, anything you want to say before we take off for the night?
Nope, not too much. We're gearing up at Cruise for spring and summer. Got some fun stuff that we're kind of excited about releasing, and we're just working on making everything better, you know? Constant. That's
good.
It's
Awesome.
a constant work in progress, which is nice, and we've had a good time doing it, and we're going to just keep doing it. So
More and more I have your beers, the more I am impressed by
good.
them. I will say
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think we're brewing one of the Beer Temple favorites, Smoke Alley, again. So hopefully we can get you guys a couple of 6 barrels if you want.
Sweet.
It's a fun one.
Awesome. Well, great. Looking forward to that. And we will see you all next week for the Beer Temple podcast. Until then, so long. Woo. Whoa. Whoa. I knew I had to mess up something.
Remember this is what we said. To never be heard, seen from again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard, seen from again. Remember this is what we wanted. Remember this is what we said. To never be heard, seen from again.